Do you need a new heating and cooling system? Are ground or air source heat pumps an option for you? Grab a cup of coffee and let's talk about it. The main part of this video is about air source and ground source heat pumps. In addition, we'll talk about what to look out for when deciding on a specific heat pump system and comments on my last air source and ground source heat pump videos. Air source heat pump systems transfer heat from the outside air into the home, while ground source heat pumps transfer heat from the ground into the home. There are central ducted air source heat pump systems that can heat either only the air of the home or as well the water of the home, and ductless mini splits that enable zoning in the home. Overall, ground source heat pumps are more efficient than air source heat pumps. This is because ground source heat pumps transfer heat via water. Water as a liquid can hold more heat than air. In more technical terms, the heat capacity of water is greater than that of air. Air source heat pump systems are also subject to fluctuating temperatures. In the winter, when the temperature goes down, the efficiency of the system decreases so that it uses more electricity. The lowest 30-year normal minimum temperature in January from 1982 to 2010 was -7 degrees Fahrenheit or about -22 degrees Celsius in US area excluding Alaska. At -7 degrees Fahrenheit, the Sanden Sanco 2 heat pump water heater still performs at a coefficient of performance COP of 2. That is 200% efficiency. So you get 2 units of energy out for putting 1 unit of energy in. At 25 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 4 degrees centigrade, the COP is 3. And more than 5 above 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees centigrade. Note that the heat capacity remains constant down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit or -15 degrees centigrade. The temperature underground remains almost constant throughout the year at about 10 degrees centigrade or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Ground source heat pumps are typically more expensive than air source heat pumps. They require digging and additional equipment that air source heat pumps do not require. However, both types of systems are eligible for the renewable heat incentive linked in the description below and other local incentives. Ductless air source heat pump systems cost between $3,500 and $8,000 and ground source heat pumps cost between $12,000 and $25,000 on average. Air source heat pumps can be as noisy as air conditioners. However, I was surprised on how quiet they are these days. For a demo, check out my last video on air source heat pumps. Ground source heat pumps, on the other hand, can operate almost silently. In terms of space required, air source heat pumps need an outside and an inside unit. The outside unit typically sits against a wall and is similar in size and shape compared to an air conditioner. The outside unit is connected to an internal unit containing the circulation pumps and the hot water, which is typically smaller than the average boiler. Ground source heat pumps absorb heat from the ground, so a network of pipes must be installed either vertically or horizontally. Depending on the ground, the vertical loop is about 100 to 400 feet deep or 60 to 100 meters deep, and the internal unit should fit into a small utility room. Depending on the availability of the installers, air source heat pumps can be up and running in a matter of days. Ground source heat pumps may take a couple of weeks due to the drilling required to lay the loops underground. For both ground source and air source heat pump systems, there are federal, state, and utility rebates available. For more details, check out the links in the description below. All in all, both ground source and air source heat pumps are amazing systems that provide savings and comfort at low emissions. If you can afford it and have the time, I'd recommend ground source heating for higher efficiency and peace of mind. Ground source heat pump systems work almost silently, most of the system is buried underground, and the high efficiency remains almost constant throughout the year. However, if you're looking for a quick fix to a broken boiler or can't bring yourself to dig a hole into the ground, then go for an air source heat pump. Air source heat pump systems can be up and running in a matter of days, and they're considered a renewable heating source as well. Either way, by switching to a heat pump system, you'll most likely save money and do something for the environment. If you still hesitate or have questions of any kind, feel free to reach out. Let's check out recommended considerations when deciding on a specific heat pump system purchase. I'll start with something most people don't think about when purchasing a heat pump system. Smart air source heat pump systems are capable of choosing the time to operate based on ambient temperature and time of use. This minimizes costs and emissions and has no influence on the comfort in your home. As discussed earlier, for air source heat pump systems, the COP, the coefficient of performance, depends on the ambient temperature. In addition, there's something called a duck curve that energy companies are interested in flattening. If your electricity provider offers a time of use plan, you can significantly reduce the electricity required to run an air source heat pump if it's capable of choosing off-peak times to operate. As discussed, the COP, the coefficient of performance, is one of the most, if not the most important criterion when purchasing an air source heat pump. The higher the COP, the better. To be more precise, choose the most suitable COP over ambient temperature profile. Air source heat pumps with a higher COP are typically not always more expensive, but it definitely pays off in the near term. If you are noise sensitive or worry about your neighbor, consider ground source to be safe. The noise level of an air source heat pump depends on the manufacturer and the model. Also, make sure that the air source heat pump is not situated right outside your bedroom or right next to your neighbor. For most people, this is an investment that is worth getting several quotes. Also consider talking to a former customer of your proposed installer to put your mind at rest. Please find links in the description below that I think help you decide on purchasing a specific heat pump system. And remember, if possible, purchase a heat pump system that is capable of both heating the air and the water in your home. Let's have a look at some comments on my last videos on ground source and air source heating. First of all, thank you very much for your comments. I really appreciated reading them, and I think all that great information helps other people a lot to find their way through the jungle of information. So this one is about terminology. Good video, with just the one common mistake of calling ground source heat pumps geothermal. Geothermal energy extraction is the big industrial scale type used for power generation using steam turbines in volcanically active places like Iceland or Yellowstone. That's a really good point. I think the actual differentiation between geothermal and ground source heating is that geothermal uses heat from the core of the earth and ground source heating uses heat from the earth that's been heated up by the sun. That means that geothermal is typically being associated with deeper drills and more industrial applications, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. That's also why ground source heating is typically 200 to 600 feet deep, and geothermal heating is approximately a mile deep on average. Here's a comment on DIY, do it yourself. I have a major issue with tip number 4. Geothermal is actually extremely easy to do. Any DIYer worth his salt can probably do it in a couple of weekends. This comment is probably useful for people who consider doing a ground source heating system themselves. I'm a DIYer to some extent. I've done solar panel systems, windows, etc. However, probably not as advanced as this guy. Also, I prefer vertical loops over horizontal loops, and you need specific machinery to do that. So overall, it probably depends on your level of experience and preparation if a do-it-yourself installation of a ground source heating system would be successful. The next comment is about incentives. If it requires an incentive, it is by definition broken. We didn't need incentives to use smartphones, Google or email. If it works, it doesn't need incentives, much less 26%. So this is not a political channel. What I'm trying to do is provide easily digestible, fact-based information. In terms of incentives, there are two things I'd like to mention. First, most products become economically viable once the incentive is dropped. And second, unlike smartphones, reducing emissions via air source or ground source heat pumps does not only benefit the person who purchases the heat pump. According to a new study by scientists from Harvard and 3 British universities, burning fossil fuel kills nearly 9 million people every year and about 350,000 in the US only. From a purely economic standpoint, climate change is extremely expensive. Climate change could wipe off 18% of the GDP of the worldwide economy by 2050 if the temperature rises by 3.2 degrees centigrade, according to the Swiss Re Institute. That's it for now on air source and ground source heat pumps. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and see you in the next video. Bye!